Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And if you are joining for the first time, this is part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We pick one vendor or the solution that we review independently. And we always have an expert panel that is willing to share their insights and wisdom. For today, we are going to be talking about a solution from Microsoft. This is the second one that we are doing with Microsoft. So this is going to be for their SMB solution, and that is the Business Central. It used to be called NAV. So we are going to have a lot of fun discussing that. Before we do that, we are going to start with everybody's intros, and I am going to start with my intro. If you don't know me, I am your host. Sam Gupta. I'm principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm. We help our clients review any sort of ERP solution with the contract negotiation, ERP selection, as well as ERP implementation. On that note, I am going to move to Phil for his intro.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Sam. Name is Phil Kerper, Managing Director of Ringling Business Solutions. We help executive leadership teams align their digital transformation strategies with their core business practices. And I come to you with several decades of implementation, including a lot of ERP and some familiarity with Microsoft as well along the way. So looking forward to it.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Phil. Dave, can I ask you to introduce yourself next?
Sure. Thanks, Sam. Hi, everybody. My name's Dave Chrysler, and I own an operations consulting company working with manufacturing leaders to help them create the systems needed to achieve operational excellence. And I come to you with more than 20 years in manufacturing operations with several ERP implementations as well. So excited to be here. Thanks, Sam.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Dave. Andy, can I ask you to introduce yourself next?
Thank you, Sam. Yeah, my name is Andy Pratico. I've been involved in ERP software for small to mid-sized manufacturers for 4 decades. I've worked all over the United States, all over Canada. I work with over 1,000 manufacturers, and I have a published book on how to select ERP software. Thank you for inviting me today, Sam.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Andy. And if you're in the audience and joining for the first time, make sure you guys are going to be sending your comments and questions. We typically cover your questions during the show. And if we cannot get to them, our panelists are going to make sure that you receive your answers. On that note, I am going to start with a little bit of briefing. If you guys are not familiar with where the Business Central product comes from, obviously, this is from Microsoft, as I had mentioned in the beginning. This is their SMB solution. So from the Microsoft's perspective, if you look at their cloud footprint, before cloud, they used to have a lot of different products. So obviously their bigger solution is going to be their AX and FNO that we have already covered. And this is their sort of the mid-tier solution for the SMB, which used to be called NAV, but now in the cloud world, it is called Dynamics 365 Business Central. They had a bunch of other products such as Microsoft GP, which does not have a very clear cloud strategy. So far, at least, we don't know if they are thinking of going with cloud strategy for GP. And SL, not too sure if there is going to be any sort of future. So the go-to product for Microsoft are going to be the Business Central and FNO. Now, overall, from the positioning perspective, the way, if you look at the product architecture of Business Central, it's a very unique product. Even though if you ask any of the Microsoft resellers or Microsoft, they are going to say that, this product is comparable to any other ERP products in the market. It can work for any industry. That's what every vendor is going to say. But if you actually look at the core feature set and the product design, it's designed from a very specific perspective. And that is validated by, if you look at the reviews and if you look at the trend of those reviews and where these industries are or the companies are using it, you will be able to spot the trend unless these companies are using some sort of thick add-ons. And that is very common in the case of Microsoft. You are going to have humongous marketplace, humongous community. Obviously, it's a very technical solution as with any of the Microsoft solutions. So you are going to have very, very, very heavy development ecosystem that is trying to develop a lot of different add-ons. So obviously they all can make money by selling these add-on products on the core solution. So so in this particular case, the marketplace is going to be really big. The ecosystem is going to be really big. You have some really big companies that are developing solutions on top of Business Central. So depending upon whether you would consider them as the add-on or you would consider them as the ERP, sometimes that could be subject to debate because those companies could be, sometimes they are like $1 billion company. So there is always a thin line in terms of which add-on is going to be okay and which add-on is not going to be okay. But overall, if you look at from the solution perspective, the community, the ecosystem is obviously going to be one of the biggest because of Microsoft. Now, from the competition perspective, obviously Business Central is the SMB solution, so it's going to compete with all of the mainstream solution that we have in the market as of today, and that is going to be your NetSuite, Acumatica, Infor, Epicor for the most part. Now, if you look at the Microsoft portfolio, so as I said, this is sort of the mid-size solution. So it is going to have the multi-entity functionality. It's not a single tenant solution, meaning you can host multiple companies. It's localized and globalized in roughly what 30-ish countries. If you look at the localization and globalization code offered from Microsoft, if you look at the partner provided code, obviously it's going to be far bigger than that. So it's a very large solution. And again, the comparable for this is going to be solutions like SAP Business by Design, NetSuite. If you compare the financial breadth of the capabilities that you are going to find in many different countries. Overall, from the product design perspective, the way product is perceived, and we are going to review their screens. I like to draw the difference between when you compare the industrial companies versus the FMCG companies. Okay, and they have very, very, very different product and the business model. So this product is designed more from the FMCG perspective. That is number one. So this product is going to do really well in the FMCG distribution space. This product is going to do really well in the project centric industries. Okay, and we are going to review that today. When I say project centric, meaning in the manufacturing, you have many different manufacturing types. You have the the make to stock, make to order, engineer to order, and then I'm talking about only the discrete manufacturing right now. And then you have the project-based manufacturing. A lot of solutions claim that they can do project-based manufacturing, but they don't really understand how project-based manufacturing works and how involved that could be. And we are going to review those capabilities in Business Central, that how deep these capabilities are going to be. The accounting is completely different. The way project-centric companies operate, and most of the solutions that might claim that they can do that, they are really lean in those capabilities, and Business Central really shines there. So again, it's designed from a very, very, very specific perspective, and that is what we are going to review and validate whether our assumptions are right or not. In terms of the technology, it is already completely re-architected. So if you look at the solution, it's going to appear, super cloud native. You cannot even spot that this is not this is a legacy solution. It's been completely re-architected. So obviously, the degree of cloud nativeness is always a question when you are looking at any solution. One of the challenges that this is very personal, to be honest. I could never relate with the Business Central product in general. Okay, I don't find it easy to use. Maybe companies like it because they like the Microsoft feeling. We have spoken to a lot of different users. They like the product a lot because of the Microsoft look and feel. Personally, the reason why I don't like it is because when I look at the different products across the verticals, they have sort of the logical hierarchy of the way screens are architected. Microsoft is trying newer things. They are even trying these things in case of Windows as well, where they are trying to sort of position the most commonly used features and trying to hide the features that are not going to be used. Right now, the way these screens are structured, in my experience, when I try to use it, it just increased the number of clicks for me. personally, and that confuses the hell out of me. Okay, but other people may be different. So this is just the personal observation that the design is slightly newer. I don't know how many people like it, but that is something that you need to pay attention to, whether you as a company are going to appreciate the design where the menus are hidden and the number of clicks are going to be more in utilizing the functionality. And we are going to review all of that. So that's from the briefing perspective. Do you guys have any comment, questions?
Yes, Sam, I do have a question, and I've gotten this question before. When there's a lot of people that are familiar with Nav. When they moved from Nav to Business Central and really made it cloud native, where are they at as far as the feature content or the depth of features that was in Nav versus what's in this? Is it similar, or is it still evolving?
So I am not sure if I am in a position to comment on that. I don't know, Andy, if you are going to have any sort of insights there. In general, the on-prem version is probably always going to be thicker. It is going to have far more features. Also, I think one of the points that most people miss when you look at the on-prem used to utilize very, very, very thick add-ons. Even in case of Microsoft, you are not going to find the same thickness in terms of the IP that is being built on top of the platform, because in the on-prem world it was just easier to build. Okay, a lot of the partners and the resellers, they could not pick up the newer cloud native skills, which is expensive, number one. Number two, it requires far deeper skill sets in terms of programming. It's not going to be, okay, I have my database, I'm going to write SQL statement and I'm going to fire everything. It's not as easy as that. So it requires far deeper expertise overall from the architecture perspective. So I would say the cloud version is still probably going to be leaner. But again, I don't think I am qualified to speak on that.
I think you're right, Sam. But from all the companies that I've known that have migrated from the old Nav or Navision product to the Business Central, I haven't had any comments or any complaints about missing functionality or lacking anything at all. So I assumed that it was quite similar, but I'm not certain about that. In regards to the number of keystrokes, that's interesting comment, Sam, because I get that complaint all the time. But there seems to be a forgiveness because of the Microsoft look and feel and centric type product that they're willing to have multiple keystrokes to get for drill downs, for going to different functionality. They're willing to live with that. And I mean, the reality is everyone's opinion of their current ERP system is relative to what they've used previously. So as long as it's better than what they used to have, I'm sure they're going to like it.
Exactly. And the perspective that I'm trying to share here is I try to look at all of the different ERP systems and try to compare, okay, how this one is different, right? So if you compare SAP, Oracle, your Infor, Epicor, they sort of follow Acumatica. NetSuite is slightly different, okay? NetSuite is definitely different product. The overall look and feel and the flow does not seem very logical. It seems very patchy. So I like to draw the trend. Is the product compliant with how other ERPs are operating, or are you trying to be Mac? Okay, being Mac is not bad, but you have to have the ecosystem and the cloud to be to pull off something like Mac, and then you probably create a very different community as opposed to the mainstream community. So that's the experience that I'm talking about, that you are going slightly different. I would say overall from the experience perspective, because when you are going to switch from one product to the next, I mean, it will require a little bit of, you are going to have the switch effect there when you are going to switch from one product to the next. For example, let's say if you switch from SAP to, let's say, Acumatica, the feel is probably going to be similar because the way these screens are organized, they are fairly similar. But if you are going to have either, let's say, Business Central to SAP, SAP to Business Central, you might actually experience a little bit of, okay, what is going on here again? And am I going to be retraining myself? So again, that's my take on any ERP solution. Are you following the norm? Are you trying to be different? If you're trying to different, is it good different or bad different? Okay, any other comments, questions, guys? Okay, so overarchingly, if you look at this screen that I am trying to present here, overarchingly, you will feel that this is any other SMB ERP. What's the difference? Okay, I have my financial management, I have customer relationship management, project management, supply chain management, human resources management, warehouse management. The sad part is these are the same feature set you are probably going to find when you review either F&O or any other products for that matter. Okay, so it gets very confusing for the buyers. Okay, this is all same. What is so different? And why is your business central different from any other ERPs? But if you look at the way the information is structured on these suites, the way product is architected, every product has design compatible to a very specific industry, a very specific business model. So unless you understand that, it's going to be really hard for you to assess, okay, where the product is going to be natural fit and where it is not going to be a natural fit. So in this particular case, it says, they have structured it in two ways from the licensing perspective. You have the essentials, you have the premium. In the premium, they are saying I have my service management as well as manufacturing. So we are going to review all of that. How much service component do they have, and how much manufacturing do they have, and can you do the real manufacturing on Business Central, or are you going to be requiring some sort of add-on to be able to do the real manufacturing? So we are going to review all of that. Now, overall look and feel, if you are simply paying attention to the screens, it's going to appear very modern, and sometimes you might feel that it's probably better than Salesforce. Okay, because that's how these screens are structured. If you look at their opportunity lead screen, but the way the data is sort of structured, even Microsoft CRM gets very, very, very difficult to use in general, because the data is not as fluid as Salesforce. So what Salesforce has done is they have removed your products from your entire data hierarchy, and that's why people like Salesforce a lot more. They just don't understand why Salesforce is easier to use. Okay, from the data maintenance perspective, when you are going to use Microsoft CRM, your product is very tightly coupled with everything that you are going to do, including creating an opportunity, creating a code. So it's really designed for retail, manufacturing, distribution business. And they used to have the product very tightly embedded with your information architecture, but that is not the case with the modern ERP. And that tightness with the object is still there overall with the Microsoft product. So you are going to feel that, even though from the screen layout perspective, you might feel that the screens are laid out very nicely and the information should be flowing naturally. Once you start using that, then you will know how tight the object structure is. So we are going to review all of that, but overall, the screens are going to appear very modern and fancy, and you are going to get a feel that this is really a very modern ERP system, just like any other CRM system that are easy to use. Okay, so overall, if you look at their screens, the way they are laid out, if you look at their functionality for warehouse, okay, the warehouse functionality is far richer than I have seen in any other ERP systems in the market. Okay, they have things such as your zones and bin numbers. Now, if you look at some of the other manufacturing ERP systems, they don't even have bins. So when you have bins, that is your signal that this is more of the distribution centric ERP system, because most manufacturers are not going to be as deep in general with their warehouse functionality. They are going to be very deep in the manufacturing functionality, but for the warehouse is not there, the critical success factor. So they are going to be cutting down on the warehouse functionality, and they are going to be building far deeper manufacturing functionality. So Business Central, when you look at their feature set and the functionality, the core product, I'm not talking about add-ons. Okay, it's going to be really, really, really deep in the warehousing functionality. In fact, if you look at the business model of some of the industrial distributors, and I am being very, very, very clear here. Okay, industrial distributors are not going to be as heavy overall with their warehouse functions. Typically, FMCG distributors require far deeper warehouse functions because their margins are far slimmer in general. Okay, and they need far more efficiency, the way things are tracked inside warehouse, the way your lot numbers, the serial numbers are structured, the way your packaging is. It's a very different business model. Okay, you don't have those challenges in the industrial distribution space. So the way the product is designed, Business Central, okay, it's designed for FMCG business. and we are going to review some of those features, why I believe that this is really for the FMCG products. So as you can see, they have the locations. In the locations, you are going to feel a lot of retail-centric feature set. And when you are looking at retail-centric ERP system, you are going to find that, okay, I have my production plant, distribution center, warehouse, showroom, retail outlet, service car, all of those could be locations. In that, you have the bin policies. And again, you are going to find these feature set bins and bin policies probably in SAP or some of the larger products. Most of the SMB customers, and Phil, maybe you can comment on that, or Dave, if you guys have seen very deep hierarchy of bins in the industries that you participated. Most of the customers, especially when you are talking about 10, 25, $50 million business, they want to simplify the whole process. Okay, so what they don't even use warehouse locations. They feel that, if I use warehouse location, then even if I'm moving the good from one place to the next, then I need to make a transaction in that, and that's an admin effort for them. So they typically avoid that. But in this particular case, the whole warehouse process is going to be very complex in general, the way Business Central product is structured. So Phil or Dave, do you have any thoughts there?
I would agree with what you said, Sam. I mean, in print manufacturing space, typically it's going to be ease of inventory. To your point, not a lot of detail there because people want to typically avoid transactions and not want to make mistakes. So getting inventory counted and accurate was sometimes the most important part of the inventory process, not necessarily locations or going to the detail of bins. I mean, there's definitely some applications that it could have been applied to enhance the functionality, but typically it was something that was avoided.
Okay, Phil, what's your observation overall?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I had more of an it depends. This level of functionality on the warehouse is certainly could be too much for someone who's more pure into discrete manufacturing and just trying to keep their inventory clean. But I think I'd have to have a little better look on the different screens. So this may be the presentation of this particular screen set versus a screen that someone in the operation side might be using commonly. So that's where I wasn't quite sure whether this was too much or not.
Yeah, but overall, I think the point that we are trying to discuss is whether let's say the industrial distributors, are they going to use bins? If they are selling, let's say, very inexpensive product, then probably they would be using that, because in my experience, when I look at the bins, that is used for the goods that are going to be, you are storing a lot of goods in very small space. So that's when you are probably going to be needing bins as opposed to, let's say, storing just in a warehouse location. So depending upon the size of the product, depending upon the cost of the product. And the other thing about bins is going to be that at the bin level, you can have a lot more properties overall that are probably not going to be available in some of the manufacturing systems. For example, in the case of bin, you can have the priority. You can have some of the constraints, such as, let's say, if you are working with a chemical company, then you have some of the products that are probably going to be flammable. Then you can tag that, okay, this particular bin is allocated for these type of products, so that you are not keeping flammable versus other products that is probably going to cause the flame right next to each other. So you might have all of those constraints. So those are applicable in very specific industries, but not for everybody. And in my experience, those constraints are typically applicable for the FMCG industry, not so much for the industrial distribution sector.
Yeah, put like that, I would definitely agree with that, Sam.
Okay. Any other comments, guys? Okay, so again, this has some very, very, very thick warehousing feature, and you are going to find all of these features in much bigger products such as SAP, where you are going to have things like in-transit code, in-transit location, because you need to track that. A lot of mid-size manufacturing ERP system might skip that because nobody really cares for that. But then when you are looking at the core manufacturing feature set, for example, let's say if you are talking about backflushing of material hours, backflushing of your labor hours, you might not find that in Business Central. So every product has a very specific perspective for which businesses it is really designed for, and what are the feature set that they really care for. So this one is really the retail, the FMCG distribution, as opposed to the industrial distribution. Okay, so now we are going to be talking about, so this is their navigate screen, and I don't know whether you guys remember the SAP Business by Design navigate screen. There, what we had is when you open a document, and here we are looking at, I believe, either this is the purchase invoice, okay, and we are looking at all of the transactions that were performed on the purchase invoice. And if you remember Business by Design, in their case, everything was sort of a flow chart, okay? And that flow chart you can track on every single document. So you had complete traceability of the transaction, what happened to the transaction. Now look at Business Central, the way they have, provided the same audit trail. So this audit trail is not going to be as easy to follow along, and by the way, finding that is a lot of effort as well. You need to click on action, then you need to click on navigate, and then you are going to find. Now, I don't know what action and navigate means. Okay, if you tell me that, okay, this is your document and this is your GL account. So most ERP systems, what they are going to say, they are going to name the tabs as, okay, this is your inventory, this is your warehouse tab, this is your, so whatever information is there, it's very logically explained rather than explaining it technically. So here I have action and navigate, and I don't really understand what that means from the business perspective. And that's my problem with the product, the way it is designed. It's very technical in perspective, as opposed to providing that business perspective, where I have the business segmentation of the information. Okay, if I need inventory information, I go here. If I need warehouse information, I go here. If I need GL code information, I go here. So that is something is not there in case of Business Central, because they are following newer approach to how they are designing their screens and menus.
Hey, Sam, would you expect that access to all of that is based on user role as well?
Access to which information? You mean like the whatever you are going
to do? Yeah, to do like a lookup like this. I would anticipate that would all be based on user role, but I'm just curious, in your experience, if you've seen something different in terms of who's allowed to view this information, because I feel like that could lead to additional confusion almost if you're prohibited from seeing some of the transactions. Whether it's in this type of a scenario or more of a flow chart kind of logical scenario. Just curious to get your perspective on that.
So that's a good question, to be honest. Okay, and I don't know how different systems are going to behave, whether they are going to limit the complete audit trail, or they are going to show the audit trail, but when you are going to click on the transaction, then it is going to say, you know what, you are not authorized to view this invoice. So you might see and again, don't quote me on this, because each system might be treating it differently. For the most part, in the case of Business Central, I think you will have ways of controlling the information. Let's say if you don't want to show a salesperson GL entry, then you should be able to control that in Business Central from the product architecture perspective.
Thanks.
Any other comments, guys?
Yeah, the Microsoft products that I've been exposed to have very extensive functionality, back office functionality on that, where you can put a lot of controls and a lot of detail around user accesses. So I would expect this is the same.
Exactly. The only difference between when you are going to look at something like SAP versus Microsoft, in my personal experience, and that is what I have seen in the user reviews as well, that the way the rules are structured, they are very technical. Okay, they are not as business savvy. So when I say business savvy, meaning, if I'm the CFO, I am looking for my AR, my AP, that's how I like to think. But if you think that from the technical perspective, you might have very programming centric roles, and sometimes that doesn't make a lot of sense for the business users. So that, and I personally have seen a lot of challenges overall with the role management, and sometimes we had like 200 different roles, and business users just could not follow along when they were looking at roles in Microsoft products. So that is something to keep in mind. Review the way the roles are structured, and how what is provided out of the box, because out of the box roles does control a lot of things, And if you have very experienced consultant on your side, they typically like to reutilize those roles, because if you are going to create a user access for each individual users, it gets very confusing. And that we have seen in cases where, let's say, the consultant is not as experienced, at least in negotiating with the business users. Sometimes the users are going to simply request the requirement, you are going to incorporate that, and after 2 years, it's a real mess that nobody can follow along. So yeah, so that's something that we have seen. Any other comments, guys? Okay. So now we are looking at some of the functionalities such as jobs. Now, when you think of jobs and when you look at jobs, your expectation is going to be, this is my manufacturing job. But the way that a job is structured inside Business Central, it's very different. Okay. So you are going to get a feel of the job as if you are looking at work breakdown structure. So it's not a real manufacturing job. In fact, I was trying to find, okay, show me a real BOM. If you are a manufacturing system, I could not find that. Okay, and this is my problem with some of the other systems that are designed for more of the assembly as opposed to real manufacturing. For example, let's say if you go to NetSuite is very hard to follow along overall from the manufacturing perspective. Again, if you're looking at core product, if you're looking at add-on, it's different. If you're looking at core product, it becomes very, very, very hard to see, okay, just show me my BOM. The only thing I'm looking for is, okay, here's my operation. Here are my materials that are going in the operation. It should be as simple as that. But no, you are not going to find that in the systems that are not designed for manufacturing. So just analyze, okay, with, what is your industry and what is your business model and whether it is going to be really the natural fit for you or not. So here, when you look at the job, this job is designed more from the project-based manufacturing system. So it's not a real, industrial manufacturing job. It's very different. The way it prices, so you can see that, it says you can manage both fixed price jobs and time and material jobs. Even the terms that they are using are very different from how a industrial manufacturer is going to use overall. So this is very project-centric manufacturing. Professional services organization is going to find it very naturally appealing because that's how they run their business. Here, a resource can be defined as a person or a machine. With the resources functionality, you can register and sell resources. By the way, sell resources. Okay. So I don't think a lot of manufacturing systems really allow you to sell the resources, but here you can sell the resources because you are literally selling bodies when you are a professional services organization. So you should be able to sell, you should be able to schedule using that. Now that's a very different piece of functionality than how manufacturer would like to think or use this feature set. Any comments? Dave, I can see you are smiling, so just want to make sure.
Just agreeing with you.
Okay. So here, again, you are not going to find some of these feature sets when you look at the resource capacity. Okay. So if you look at the manufacturing systems, they are going to be super lean overall in terms of how they schedule the capacity. So here you are going to be looking at different dates, and the schedule based on each individual resources. When you look at the WBS, okay, it's going to be very different. So if you look at the manufacturing system, some systems, the way they do it is, okay, here are my budgetary tasks, but I don't really have that start date, end date, and whatever else I need for my WBS. It's going to be just from the costing purposes. Okay, so it's not really from the operational perspective the way my WBS should be when I am looking at my project-based manufacturing. The project-based manufacturing is very, very, very different. And as you can see, even if you look at the data, when you are looking at demos, okay, so pay attention to the kind of products that they are trying to demonstrate. So most companies, what they do is they are going to create a product that is going to be similar to your industry to make sure that you are able to connect with it. But if you look at the core data, this is the default data that Business Center likes to show. And here they are trying to show reception area remodel. Okay, that's project-based manufacturing. That's not the industrial manufacturing when you are going to, let's say, going to do some sort of cutting tools, etc. That's a very different kind of manufacturing. Okay, so in this particular case, the way the WBS is structured, it's just phenomenal. I just love it. Okay, there are very few systems that can do this, but these systems cannot do manufacturing as well. This is the same thing that we saw in case of business by design. Okay, business by design had very, very, very deep project-centric, functionality. It did not have as natural manufacturing. SAP Business by Design is slightly different than Business Central. It has far deeper, BOM in the product model. The way the product structured, Business Central is even leaner than that overall in terms of the native capabilities. Now, when you look at the timesheet is very natural. If I look at my, ERP company or a consulting company, accounting, marketing agencies, they are going to absolutely love it because this is how the timesheet is supposed to be. Okay. But if you go to a manufacturing company, they probably may have punch outs on a job. That's not a real timesheet. So it could be very interesting. So again, this is designed more from the professional services, excuse me, project-based manufacturing perspective, but it's not really, for the industrial manufacturing. The service items are very, very, very interesting. So a lot of professional services companies are going to have very different, very deep the service, requirements. For example, let's say if you look at some of the project-based manufacturing, for example, the print business, signage business, you are building modular home. If you are doing that, then you need to go and you need to really install at the site. So you require very deep service management functionality. You should be able to do the timesheet on site. So all of those feature sets are not going to be available in your manufacturing system because that's a very different business model. You are not going to have very deep planning and dispatching. Sure, you can find patches where the service management functionality is similar. Let's say if you look at the automotive value chain, okay, in that as well, you might be able to find some of this because they are doing a lot of different service repair. You are doing service repair in case of MRO as well. But here in this space, the services, the way you are going to be performing your services is going to be very different from the business model perspective. So here they are saying service items are the equipment or the item that needs to be serviced or repaired. Okay, you can record and keep track of all of your service items, including contract information, component management, BOM reference, warranty information. By the way, we are going to review their BOM as well. It's not the real BOM that you would expect in a manufacturing system. You obviously have the contract, the warranty, the way the planning and dispatching is done for different resources. It's very different perspective. Okay, so this is my production order. And now when I look at the production order, if I'm looking at the industrial manufacturing system, my hope is going to be, hey, I have my BOM for item, that BOM I should be able to use, let's say, in my production order. If I need to make any changes to my BOM, I should be able to do that. So the BOM has a life cycle in itself, the way BOM moves. And you are going to have the wraps for the BOMs. The item BOM is going to be very different from your job BOM. You should be able to copy and paste wherever you need to. So you require very deep BOM manipulation functionality. But here, you will not be able to see the whole BOM. You are probably going to see, okay, so this is your production order, and these are the materials that you are trying to use for your production, and that's it, your BOM is done. That's not how your industrial manufacturing is supposed to be done. Okay, so this is, again, if you are the FMCG distributor, if you are assembly-centric organization, if you are project-based manufacturing, this is perfect. This is a phenomenal system. Okay, but if you are the industrial manufacturing, industrial distribution, this may not be the best system. So here it is saying production orders can be created on order-by-order basis, either manually from the production order page or generated from sales order planning or order planning pages. And again, typically you are going to have the words called MRP, and they have not really used those. So obviously this is a very distribution-centric system, and that's why, if you look at the manufacturing system, they are going to say, so you are going to be creating the production order either manually or through any MRP. But here you are not seeing those words, in the marketing description. Go ahead.
Sam, a question for you, and there's some comments coming through the YouTube channel, which I'm not sure how to respond to, but a general question that's kind of a few of the comments are built around is the focus on project management and project type of functionality because of the section we're in that's focused on that?
No.
Or are we in a unit that is also supposed to be covering manufacturing?
No, so
Because
when
you're
we
right.
analyze,
This section is definitely making it look like project-based software. Is there a manufacturing section that would fill in the blanks on that, or is this what they're presenting?
yeah, so this is your production order. I mean, this is the bread and butter of manufacturing. And if this is not coming across as your manufacturing, that means your manufacturing functionality is limited. So
Yep.
when we do these sessions, we are looking at the overarching picture of the product, how the product is designed natively, how the streams are flowing, how the menu items are structured, how the marketing material is worded. So we are not looking at just one off instance, and by the way, we are validating that with user reviews and everything. So it's the comprehensive picture, how the product is designed. What is the mindset?
That's the exact point I was hoping you'd make. And the other point to be made is that we're basing this on public information.
Exactly.
Right. So if there's because one of the person that's commenting is, a Microsoft person, which is great. Glad to have you here. But obviously they're gonna have insight. If what we're saying is not complete, then put it out there.
Exactly.
So that people like us that are doing the reviews can find it and use it to help advise our customers.
Exactly. Great point. Thank you so much, Phil, for that. If you have any other comments, I can take those. Or we can look at some more screens. So here again, when you look at the overarching warehouse functionality, and again, you can't hide the functionality that you really have. So warehouse functionality is clearly evident. Okay, you can see it. You can see bins, you can see locations. If you had manufacturing functionality, obviously it will be visible, but it's not there. Okay, so again, from the warehouse perspective, this is one of the strongest warehouse solution or the distribution solution out there, to be honest. And that's how deep the functionality is. It's so deep that probably SMB companies don't need as deep functionality, to be honest. Okay, but from the bins perspective, from the warehousing perspective, FMCG distribution perspective, this is one of the best. No questions about that. Here, so this is your again, I am trying to demonstrate some of the other warehousing features, the whole depth overall from the distribution perspective. So you are going to see zones and bins, and the way the bins are flowing through overall in the rule hierarchy. It's just mind-blowing, to be honest. It's a very, very, very thick and very deep. For any of the FMCG distribution business, this is just mind-blowing. This is phenomenal. No questions about that. Now look at the rules for the bin content, what you can do overall. And let's say if you are a pharma distribution, chemical distribution, probably you are going to need a lot of that. Okay, and we are going to see the way their lot and serial number and the packaging numbers are structured. They are going to be only applicable in case of pharma. If you go to automotive, probably it's not going to be as relevant. So again, the perspective of the product is very FMCG, food and beverage, but for food and beverage, you don't really have the recipe and the formula as part of the product. So again, for food and beverage distribution, it could be great, not so much for food and beverage manufacturing. And again, unless you are using add-on, okay, any product is going to work for you. But right now, we are trying to review the native capabilities, the native design of the product, where it is going to be the most natural fit.
And to your point a few slides ago, it's fascinating that this much of functionality is built around bins.
Exactly. It's really
fascinating. And not that that's not a good way to do things in certain applications, but there's many applications where this would not really be the way the business processes were flowing. So that's just really interesting. There's this much functionality around bins.
Honestly speaking, I personally find it slightly overwhelming for the kind of product this is, to be honest. Okay, most SMB businesses, unless you are in that FMCG space, I think they are very thick overall in the way they track their products and what kind of feature set they need from the warehouse perspective. But for others, it might not be as relevant. Here, you are also talking about cross-docking. Cross-docking is probably not available in a lot of SAP products natively. You probably are going to use some sort of add-on to have cross-docking, which is available as part of the product, which is phenomenal.
Hey, Sam, do you, or maybe Andy, you may know as well, but do you guys know, was the kind of extensive bin functionality, was that a carryover from the previous version, or is this new functionality that has been added on based on, user demand?
This has been a carryover. A nav and its predecessor called Navision was originally designed for wholesalers and warehouse management.
Well, then that would make perfect sense. So,
especially cross-docking functionality is, like Sam said, either an advanced feature or an add-on feature.
Exactly, guys. So here now again, more bin. Okay, you cannot hide bins from your Business Central. Too much bins, but obviously this is very thick functionality for a FMCG distribution business. And if you're really rich in a feature set, it's going to be evident everywhere in your marketing, in your demos. So obviously this is very deep overall from the distribution perspective. No questions about that. Now, here are some of the tracking that I was talking about. So one of the limitations that a lot of companies are going to hit when they are talking about medical device pharma, because they typically require serial number as well as lot number, okay, together, because that sometimes goes in packaging. There are different ways of interpreting how you are going to interpret that. One number carries over in your entire supply chain. So there are specific nuances there in that industry, and most of the manufacturing system, they are going to fall short because they are not really designed for those FMCG verticals. And this is where Business Central really shines in decoupling your serial number from your package tracking. Now, the way their demos are structured, package tracking, they are saying, what, you can track your tracking number, shipping number as part of your package tracking. But the real intent of that is going to be when you have two different numbers, one could be your batch number and one could be your serial number, you can have both of them coexisting. A lot of systems out there are going to fall short, and this is absolutely critical for some industries. The product is not going to work if you don't have that. So again, this is a very unique feature that you have as part of Business Central that you are not going to find. And again, that is applicable in your food and beverage and regulated food and beverage industries. Okay, so this is the inventory setup screen. So you have a lot of different things such as your dimensions, catalog item numbers, and then overarchingly, if you look at the screens, it's going to have all of those real ERP features in terms of your costing, but the costing is not going to be as rich as you would find in a manufacturing system. Okay, the costing for manufacturing system is very different from a distribution system. Okay, so that depth is not there overall from the costing perspective if you look at their costing screens. This is the package tracking that I was talking about, that they can coexist, and you have a lot of different fine settings in terms of how you can design your lot numbers and the serial numbers, and on which transactions the lot number needs to be there. Again, mind blowing. I have never seen this functionality anywhere else in any other systems. And again, there are very specific industries that are going to require this. So if you are in that industry, the system is going to be mind blowing there. Okay, so here is my item tracking, and things such as, let's say, if you look at the expiration calculation, okay, some of the systems such as, let's say, if you go to Acumatica, they struggle with it, okay, because they don't really need it. In case of your industrial distribution, you might not really require that. But when you are doing a lot of FMCG stuff, that's where features such as expiration calculation is going to be very handy, because each lot that you are going to scan, and if you have to enter expiration date, you are going to be done. Okay, so you need to make sure that your expiration is going to be auto-populated so that you are doing faster warehouse transaction. Again, very distribution problem, not so much manufacturing problem. Okay, here the cost accounting setup, and I just don't follow this one, to be honest. And this gets, for some reason, I mean, see, even though Microsoft is going to be very technical system, but when I look at the overall accounting, it gets very technical the way they have structured their screens. For example, let's say if you look at the costing, they are saying allocation. And again, this allocation is going to be relevant only when you are going to be a professional services, project-centric organization. Allocation, typically, if you look at the manufacturing systems, they are going to have the allocation at the GL level. Let's say if you need to split the rent, then you have those allocations. From the cost accounting perspective, I just don't understand why you would have allocation here. unless you are in those industries where they are doing allocation for the project. It's just very different. It's not the real manufacturing flavor that I personally like to see in the ERP system from the cost accounting perspective. Okay, I can take some comments. Otherwise, some more screens to go. Here, and this is your bomb, by the way, guys. Okay, so this is a very different bomb. And again, I was trying to find a different bomb, but here you have the work center. You have the setup and runtime. The setup and runtime are not really split with respect to your machine time. So typically, if you're looking at manufacturing system, you are going to have a lot of machines. Here, you don't have to worry about all of that. Okay, and you sort of have the operation, but the presentation is very different. Okay, if you look at the whole demo of their bombs, it just feels very different. It does not feel as if this is manufacturing, because again, the manufacturing is not as involved for those project centric organization. For them, the critical success factor is going to be whether my overarching project is on budget or not, whether my resources are going to be serving on time or not, because your heaviest item on your project is not going to be your materials. That's going to be your people, because you're a consulting organization. And those are the people who are charging $200, $250, $300, $500 an hour. So that's where your major cost items are going to be there. If you look at manufacturing companies, for them it's different. It's machines, guys. That's the most expensive part. The electricity, they might not have as expensive people. So it's a very, very, very different perspective overall, the way these industries operate. Okay, I can take some comments, or I can cover some more. And these are some of the reviews that we have checked. And here the user is saying a few redundancies and procedural missteps on menus and tabs can make the portal a bit crowded, and which is right as well. So this user is sort of agreeing with me that too many steps, it feels a bit crowded overall, the way the product is designed. Here they are saying not as simple and seamless as we expected from migrating from another Microsoft Dynamics software product. We moved from GP to NAV. GP, I personally find very natural product. The way we have reviewed GP as well, the way it was designed, it was very natural. For some reason, NAV is tricky. Okay, I don't know why, and I don't know if FNO is going to have similar design overall from the design principle perspective. It just feels different. It does not feel ERP in my mind. Our staff is going through a tougher time than we thought to learn some procedures. Here they are saying automate the creation of bill of materials for production. We can now generate a BOM from sales order. Okay, you do that only when you are a project-based manufacturing. Okay, yes, you are going to do that probably in the make to order scenario as well. But for the most part, you do this. Otherwise, you are probably going to have a BOM and an item in your ERP system before you release the sales order, release the job order. So it's a very different process flow, very different business model, very different business process. So again, you can see or notice these themes in the user reviews as well, the way the product is designed.
Sam, you obviously people sometimes think engineer to order and project manufacturing are synonymous, which they're not. But would you say that the project manufacturing type, the project type companies that NAV would be good for, or Business Central would be good for, would be like construction?
So construction is a very different industry overall. Okay, so I don't think I see Business Central as the construction product, to be honest. It has very different regulations overall. It does not. Sure, some people may argue that it also has project, but construction, if you look at the way construction is done, you have jobs, you have cost codes, so you don't really have the whole WBS. Okay, but let's say if you look at the product, this the sample data was building, kitchen remodeling, these are the architectural firms. These are slightly more consulting organization. So they have flavor of the project centric manufacturing. Okay, that's not really your engineer to order. It's not necessarily construction. It's sort of somewhere in between.
Gotcha. That clears it up a little bit.
And I think that's their lane. They do have a lane. They're not. They're, as many of these are, It's almost feels like they're conflicted of wanting to look like they're broader from applications when they actually really have a great lane. If they would just explain, this is where we really shine, guys.
If they stayed in their lane.
Yeah. And I thought you did a really good job on this one with the screenshots, right? Not with some bullet point list, but by actually looking at the functionality that they're explaining, that their lane comes out when you go through it like this. And it's not manufacturing and it's not build to order. You know, it's distribution and it's project-based sales orders, and they really shine there with all that functionality.
But you know how it is with software vendors is that if someone calls in and says, hey, I'm a engineered order manufacturer or I'm a make to order manufacturer, does Business Central fit? They immediately say yes. All they care about is selling the software, not what's the best fit for the client.
Well, and that's why, that's why there's a lot of talk about the, the app extensions, and that even comes up in one of the client, kind of testimonials and white papers, where they are leaning slightly towards manufacturing, but they say very specifically that thanks to some of the additional, apps that were available, they were able to satisfy their needs. So back to your point, Phil, I kind of feel like that's a recurring theme with a lot of the solutions that we have reviewed here, is that going through there is very clearly a lane that, each one of these fits for. And yet, through other innovations, let's call it, we're trying to make the solution a go. So I think, that was a great point.
Well, at the very beginning of the presentation, Sam was mentioning about NetSuite. NetSuite's a great example of a product that relies on their apps. They have a very, very extensive app store. Well, it's the same thing with Business Central. They don't really call it an app store. They're called ISVs, independent software vendors. But it's a lot of the other third-party bolt-ons that have developed industry-specific functionality that fills in the gaps. Now, whether or not those fill in the gaps as well as a full end-to-end product would, a single ERP would, it's debatable. And whether or not the ISV is as good a quality as the core system is also debatable. That's all part of the due diligence when you're evaluating these systems. And
the maintenance of it once you start bolting those on.
Absolutely.
And over time, really has to be balanced, so you get the functionality by adding on some apps or some third-party apps, or maybe the SI is helping you to put the thing together. And then when it's all said and done and you start running updates and these cloud-based systems are driving updates and driving improvements, and now you're spending every quarter, every 6 months, whatever their update cycle is, having to go back through and do re-quality checks and do more user testing and more patches.
Hey, I'll tell you a story. My brother works for a large wholesale distributor. They've got a couple of small manufacturing facilities, but they're mostly 99% wholesale, about $1 billion revenue. Facilities all over North America. He's one of their purchasing analysts. They bought Nav back 10 years ago or so, back when it was called Nav, or Navision, it might have been in those days. But they bought it because it was so flexible to customize. And they ended up customizing the heck out of it and building all kinds of stuff. And you'll never guess how long it takes them now to do an upgrade.
And how many people?
How
many people are working?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. was that a trick?
It takes them a year.
A year.
So now you start resisting the upgrades. So now they're giving you extra functionality
because of it.
Yeah.
See, I thought that was going to be a trick question, and the answer was never, because they don't go after an upgrade because it just takes way too long. I mean, back to that point, though, Phil, you kind of touched on it, and from the consumer perspective, right? People that are purchasing these products, they don't think what happens when that ISV doesn't initiate updates, right? And so now not only could you have the potential of having to re-architect some of your operations to now fit a new solution, because hey, this particular bolt-on is no longer supported. So,
And
all of those
are having
are
the experience with that
Yeah.
bolt-on.
yeah.
Right.
All right, guys. So
Lots of times they're bringing in people from Europe or whatever else, and so guess what happens? Finger pointing.
Yeah.
It's
all right, guys. So I can take some more short comments, and then we need to wrap. We are close to our time now.
my last short comment is one of the selling features, obviously being Microsoft, it sells itself right there. But one of the selling features of Business Central has always been how easy it is to customize. But that's also probably one of the worst features because you can make it do anything, but oh my goodness.
Yeah. Phil, Dave, any other short comments?
No, I think we covered it. Good session, Sam.
Yeah. Great session.
All right, guys. So that's a wrap. And again, ERP systems you should not be buying just purely based on customizability. You can customize any system out there. That's how ERP systems are. But if you are in the project-centric manufacturing, or if you are in that FMCG distribution space, Business Central should be your go-to product. You should definitely include as part of your evaluation. On that note, that's it for today. If you joined for the first time, this was part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We pick one vendor or the solution that we review independently. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. We are going to be here with another solution. On that note, thanks everyone for your time and insights tonight.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.